Here's how I lost 10 kilograms of fat in 12 weeks without giving up my favorite foods, and how you can too. In this video, what I want to do is go through with you guys my own recent transformation journey of how I lost 10 kilograms of fat in 90 days, all without giving up my favorite foods. And I want to give you a step-by-step guide of how you can do the exact same thing. So for any of you guys who are new to the channel, my name's Zach. I'm an online transformation coach from Gold Coast, Australia, and I essentially help busy professionals to get in their best shape, to feel confident in themselves, to develop their mindset, gain muscle, lose fat, and just feel great about themselves. So in this video, I want to show you guys my step-by-step guide or how I went through actually losing fat in 12 weeks and what process I went through to actually achieve that result. And by the end of this video, you'll have a step-by-step guide or a process that you can follow to achieve fat loss in the same way that I did. So without further ado, let's get into the video. So step one, the first thing that I did when it came to this transformation journey was I set a moderate caloric deficit. I set up a caloric deficit, which is the fundamental requirement for any successful or effective diet. And I don't really like using the term diet, but we'll just call it that for the video. But essentially what I did was I set up a moderate caloric deficit. And when I say moderate, I just mean something that you can stick to for a long period of time. Now, my experience when it's come to caloric restriction or caloric deficits and trying to remove weight or trying to cut down has been that if you do too much of an extreme, if you try and cut down too much and you put yourself in say like 1,000 caloric deficit, so 1,000 calories underneath your maintenance, then it's not going to be sustainable for you for very long. And what it often can lead to is severe muscle degradation, meaning like when you're cutting down that much and you're restricting what you eat so much, it's actually, yes, it's cutting into your fat, but it's also going to reduce significantly the amount of muscle as well, which is something that we want to prevent when we're in a caloric deficit. We want to be trying to retain as much of that as possible. Now, before I go any further into the video, I will just clarify that when it comes to any form of fitness goal, you need to first establish what your caloric maintenance is. And I'll also just clarify that when it comes to anything that you're doing, when it comes to fat loss or weight loss, a caloric deficit is a fundamental requirement. You cannot escape this. So anyone who tries to preach that this specific diet or that diet is the one that's for you, the underlying principle behind any of those diets is the fact that it creates a caloric deficit, meaning that your body has a certain amount of calories that it burns every single day. And in order for you to lose fat, you need to be taking in less calories or energy than your body is burning on a daily basis. That is an absolute fundamental requirement. Now, how you achieve that doesn't really matter that much. And it does, but it doesn't. But in the terms of a caloric deficit, you can achieve that in many different ways, but it all has the same underlying principle. So that's a fundamental requirement that I wanted to clarify for you so you understand how this process works. And when you hear someone saying that it's like, oh, this diet or that diet, it's like, that's always the thing. Keep that in the back of your mind that that's always what's going to create the result. That's what's going to help you drop fat, is the caloric deficit. Anyway, back to the video. So I calculated a moderate caloric deficit of 500 calories under my maintenance. And usually the kind of guiding principles I use with my clients and what I usually do with myself is anywhere between 250 and 750 caloric deficit. And that's why I usually just go for 500, because it's just, you can just maintain that. It's a lot more simple to do that. You're not going to be as hungry most of the time. And there's a lot you can do with that still, especially if you're keeping your activity levels up, meaning that even when you're in the caloric deficit, your calories will still be a lot higher if your activity levels are higher, meaning you can just eat more food and you can still maintain that caloric deficit. And over the long term, that will make it a lot easier for you when you're trying to achieve fat loss. Now, when it comes to the actual caloric deficit itself, you might be questioning or asking yourself, what am I actually eating during that time? Now, when it comes to eating patterns, I'm not going to tell you how to eat, but I'm just going to share with you what I've done and what I have found effective during this 90-day transformation. And during that time, I basically followed what's called the 80-20 approach. And I'll explain later on in the video what that entails and how you can apply that. Now, when it comes to calculating a caloric deficit, there are many calculators and different things online that you can use. However, if you're not sure where to get started, then I've actually actually created a free tool that you can use. You can check that out in the link below in the description, and you can just click on that and you can enter in the email and just download that, and that'll give you a free copy of the actual tool that you can use forever. And you can come back to that whenever you need to, and you can readjust as needed, as you need to readjust calories, or if you need to adjust your activity levels based on that. So if you need to up or lower your calories, or you want to see what the output will be and how many you can eat, then you can just input the information into the tool and it will spit out the number that you need to be aiming for and also a protein goal as well. So yeah, if you want to get started, you're not sure where to go, that's a great resource that I've created, completely free. So step 2 in the process of what I did was I set up my calorie tracking. So you can use any application. For me, I used MyFitnessPal for a while, but I also switched over to my own coaching app that I use with my clients, which is Trainerize. So I use that to coach all my clients, and that's got an inbuilt tracker. But there are lots of good tracking apps that you can use, and I would highly recommend doing a digital version of this, and I'll explain why. But essentially, it just makes it a lot easier, and you can use MyFitnessPal, you could use Chronometer, you can use inbuilt, if you've got a coach already, you can use the inbuilt tools that they may or may not have, depending on who you're with. But there are lots of good apps out there that you can use, but that's just a couple of them. And I'll also leave a couple of links to that below as well that you can use, like some links to MyFitnessPal and Chronometer if you want to get started on that tracking. But essentially, tracking is a massive part of the journey, okay? When it comes to any transformation, you need to be able to measure how much calories you are taking in, how many calories you're actually consuming, and how much energy you're taking in versus how much you're expending on a daily basis, okay? You have to think of it like a bank balance or like a bank account. Now, when you are trying to save money, what do you need to do? You need to spend less than you earn. And if you're constantly spending more than you earn, meaning you're taking in more calories than you need, then you're not going to lose weight. You're not going to lose fat. If you're constantly over-consuming on calories, you're overfeeding and you're in a caloric surplus, it's not going to work for you. Same thing was if you're in caloric maintenance, so what they call it isocaloric. So I tracked my calories. I started doing that every single day. And what I also did was I started creating meals. Now, a quick tip for you guys when you are tracking calories, because it can seem like a bit of a pain in the ass. So what I like to do, and this is quite common with most people, is that you usually have about 12 to 15 different meals that you'll be eating on a weekly basis. So you might have, a couple of different forms of breakfast, some, common meals that you'll have for lunch, a couple common things you'll have for dinner, and you usually just cycle through those every week. So what I do is in most of the nutrition tracking or calorie tracking apps, you'll have an option in there where you can create meals. And if they don't have that pre-saved in their database for you, you can create a meal inside there, and then you can just save that, and every time you come back and you eat that again, you don't have to retype the ingredients in every single time. Otherwise, it becomes just really cumbersome and annoying to do. So you have to try and make the process as easy as possible for you, so then you can just go through it with fluidity, you can get it done quickly, and you can move on with your day. You don't want to be sitting there for hours and hours tracking calories. So that's just a faster way that you can speed up the process. So create the meals inside there. You might have to do a bit of the back end work first to set it up, but once it's set up, it's really easy. You just click, all right, favorites, then you can just go through and add that in, and it makes the process a lot easier. So that's what I did. I started creating that, started tracking my calories every single day to see how much I was taking in versus how much I was expending. So a quick note with tracking calories. The reason it's so crucial to be tracking how many calories you're eating is because if you don't know how many calories you're taking in versus how much you're expending on a daily basis, then how are you supposed to know if you're making progress? You're kind of just guessing as to how much you should be eating. And honestly, with my own transformation journey, playing the guessing game is just not a good strategy if you want to achieve results. You need to be able to measure it like fairly accurately. It's not going to be perfect, but you need to be able to measure it quite accurately in order to achieve the result. So that's why tracking calories is a crucial part of the process. So the third thing that I did when it came to this 90-day transformation was I set up a program, and I developed a program that actually works with me. Something that I could stick to, something that I could be consistent with. And it's so important that you develop a consistent program, or a program that you can stay consistent with over the course of at least 3 months. Because if you develop a program that's a 6-day split, and you only have 2 to 3 days to work out per week, then how do you expect to stick to that? Especially if you're trying to balance out your physique as well, it's going to cause all sorts of trouble. So when you're developing a program, it's important, or you're getting a program from someone, or you're working with someone, whatever it might be, make sure that the program that you have developed or that you have bought or whatever is something that you can stick to for at least 3 months, if not longer, to be honest, because it needs to be able to fit in with your lifestyle. So for me, that looked like a 4-day split consisting of an upper body workout, which focused on more the posterior or the rear side of the body, a lower body exercise, a lower body program or workout rather, which was also posterior focused to help to correct posture as well. As a coach, that's something that I work with my clients as well. So I develop a program, but it'll always focus on correcting posture at the same time as building muscle and achieving the goal as well. It also had another lower body session, which was anterior focus, meaning the front side, so quad focus type of workout, because I'm trying to build the muscle there. And also another upper body workout that was more anterior focused, meaning like chest, most things that are pushing movements. So 4 workouts. And for me, that's not a magic number. That's just what works with my lifestyle, where I'm currently at. And then I add on other things like cardio and just other forms of workouts or exercise that I enjoy throughout the week. And that's what I can stick to. And that's what I've been doing for probably about 1.5 years. And it's worked out really well. So for you, when it comes to developing any program or getting a program, make sure it's something you can stick to. If you know you can only realistically commit to 3 days per week, then get a program with 3 days per week. Don't try and commit to 6 days if you know you can only do 3. So if you're not sure where to go or where to get started with a training program, I've actually developed several free training programs that you can check out in the link description below. Just have a look around, see which one might be right for you if you're not sure where to get started. And yeah, you can just check those out and you can get a free copy. So the 4th step that I took in this transformation journey was setting a step goal. For those of you who don't know about steps, then steps are an extremely helpful tool that can help you to burn more calories throughout the day. Walking, just simply the act of walking, can help you to increase what's called your NEAT, or your non-exercise activity thermogenesis. It's just a fancy word, but it's basically just like exercise that is not planned for, or exercise that's not like super intense exercise. It's kind of like walking upstairs or walking around, and getting steps in like that is a great way to increase your daily energy expenditure. And that actually accounts for a large amount of what's called your TDEE, meaning your total daily energy expenditure. And basically walking just helps to contribute a large percentage to that. So by just getting in steps, that's simply a nice lever that you can pull that will help you to increase the amount of calories that you burn on a daily basis. And it's a super simple tool if you're really struggling with weight loss or fat loss. That's something that I utilize with all of my clients, and it's something that I do as well. So what I did was I set a step target of 10,000 steps per day. Now that's a pretty good guide for the activity levels, something that I knew I could commit to for at least 90 days. And again, make sure it's something that you can stick to. But what this is going to do is this level of activity means that I can increase the amount of food that I eat and still achieve the caloric deficit. So for me, increasing that would mean that my activity levels go up a lot, meaning my caloric burn would be higher. So when you combine this with other forms of exercise, specifically resistance training and doing something else that you enjoy as well, whatever that might be, that's going to be something that contributes massively to helping you lose fat. Now, when it comes to the actual tracking of steps, I use my Apple Watch to track how many steps I'm taking. You could use your phone if you want to, but I find that's not as accurate usually as using a watch, provided that it's actually a good one, not a super old one, and sometimes they can be a bit inaccurate. But most of the newer watches and smart devices that are wearable are usually pretty good and accurate when it comes to just tracking steps, but I wouldn't be using that for determining your caloric burn. So just ignore that and only focus on the caloric goal that you've set using the tools. But when it comes to tracking steps, they're a great measure for that. And just a few quick tips that you can use for how to actually achieve that goal. So specifically for me, achieving 10,000 steps, that usually equates to about 45 minutes to an hour of walking per day. So I'll try and break that up into different parts. Maybe in the morning I go for a walk, it might be a brief walk, could be 10 minutes, whatever. And then later on in the evening, when the day is over, everything's done, then I'll go for another walk with my partner, or depending on whatever situation you have, just find times where you can fit in or slot it in. So what I actually used to do was when I was working at an office, I would actually, during my lunch break, I'd eat my food quickly, then I'd just go for a walk. So you can go for a walk outside, get some fresh air, get some steps in, and it's a great way to be able to increase your step count throughout the day, just slotting it in so it's not such a painful thing where you're like, oh, I have to go and do a full hour of walking at the end of the day. Try and find areas in your life where you get little gaps, and then you can just go and increase the steps there. So that's a really helpful tool that I've used and something I utilize when I'm trying to lose fat. So step 5 in this process for me was to find my why. And you might be asking, what do I mean when I say find my why? I'm saying find the reason that's compelling or meaningful to you to achieve the goal. So for me, I had been doing a long bulk for about a year, which in hindsight was probably too long, but after that time, I decided I had accumulated a little bit too much fat. I didn't want to keep that on for a long time. It wasn't a massive amount. It was only like 17 to 18% body fat. But for me, that was still too high. So that was the time where I'm like, all right, I'm ready to actually make this change. I'm kind of feeling a bit uncomfortable with how I'm looking. And so for me, that was where I decided I want to get shredded. I want to get the 6-pack, or I want to at least cut down a little bit and feel a bit more confident and feel a bit better in my own skin. So that was my reason why. For everyone else, it's going to be different, but I would be doing you a disservice if I didn't tell you that this was a crucial part of the process, and arguably could be set as the first step, to be honest, but I'm not really doing these things necessarily in order. This is just the action steps that I took as a whole. Now you might be thinking or asking, why do I need to find my why? What's the reason for that? And the reason why it's important to find your motivation for that. And I don't mean find motivation constantly as in like the gimmicky type of motivation. I mean finding something that's meaningful to you, that's going to help carry you through to the end. And when I say find your why, for someone it's going to be different for you. But the reason why it's so important to do this process is because if you don't have that there, if you don't have that thing that's inspiring you towards something, then it's going to be really easy to fall off track. Until you've built discipline, consistency, and you've built it into your daily routine and it's part of the habits that you've developed, then it's very easy to fall off track. But if you've got something there that helps you to push you through, then that is going to help you to stay the course and finish and see it through to the end. So that's why it's crucial. Otherwise, you're just kind of like, why am I doing this? Like you've got to have a reason or reasons why you're doing it that's powerful enough to push you through when things get hard. So keep that in mind, find out what it is for you, ask yourself the question repeatedly, and then when you've come up with enough reasons that's compelling enough for you to start taking action on this, then get started. So step 6 in this process was I started to weigh myself daily. Now, I actually have a scale, like a body composition scale that I use, and it connects up to my app and it's synced up to Wi-Fi and everything. It's just more of a smart type of scale. But what it does is it tracks body fat. It tracks several metrics of body composition, and then it sends that information over to my phone automatically, and I can just see the updates over time. And one of the reasons why I like to track myself daily is to take the emotion out of it. And I also want to see the long-term progress of how far and how much I'm actually progressing towards the goal. But one of the reasons why I like to also track it daily is because it allows you to see the daily fluctuations in your weight, in different measures of body composition every single day. So you can be like, oh, well, I put on like 1 kilo or 2 kilos overnight, like out of nowhere. But then you can have a look. It's like, oh, okay, well, I went out last night and I had food with a lot of salt in it, and salt tends to retain a lot of water. So in that process, you can be like, oh, you start to gather an idea of how different foods can affect you, but you also get to see that it's not a big deal. If you put on a couple kilos and then you lose it, and then like you have daily fluctuations, and that's completely normal. But for the median, if you're losing weight like week on week or month on month, then that's progress. That's the real progress that you want to be looking at. So I find having a long-term and seeing the short-term is helpful for the overall goal. Now, step 7 in this process of what I did was I took progress photos every 1 to 2 weeks, and I took them in the same lighting, in the same position, at the same spot or the same location so that I could try and get as much of a consistent outcome as possible. This isn't always possible to do necessarily, but like if you're living at home, it's quite easy to do that. Like you can just go into the bathroom, if you've got some lighting there, take the photo, or if you've got like your bedroom or wherever it might be, try and find a consistent spot with consistent lighting, and you just take that same photo every couple of weeks or every week, every 2 weeks, ideally every week, so you can see the visual changes of your body composition over time. So that's what I did, and I noticed the changes of that like quite regularly, and it's a very helpful tool if you want to see regular progress. And this is also something that I apply with all my clients as well. I'm not really a big fan of doing skin folds and calipers and measuring tapes and all that stuff. I just find it easier to just take a photo because you can just see it there, and it's also less invasive. You don't have someone poking at you and squeezing your skin and squeezing fat, all this stuff, and a lot of people feel quite vulnerable and uncomfortable doing that. And if you are comfortable doing that, then that's fine, but this is just the process that I follow and something that I use with my clients, and it's been quite effective so far. So that's just something I do, is take the photo every week or every 2 weeks to keep regular records of your progress. So the 8th step in this process was I followed the 80-20 approach. So the 80-20 approach, if you're not sure what I'm talking about here, I referred a little bit earlier in the video about the 80-20 approach and how I use that during this process. But what it means is essentially 80% of the time I was trying to eat good, solid, whole foods, minimally processed types of foods, or the more healthier options of foods. And then 20% of the time I ate whatever I wanted. If I wanted to have lollies, or if I wanted to have takeout, going out to eat, pizzas, pasta, whatever it might be, like junk food, you might call it, then I could do that. And as I said, the main thing that creates weight loss or fat loss is being in a caloric deficit. And now technically, if I wanted to, I could eat 100% bad food and lose weight. But the thing is, you would feel like trash, you wouldn't feel good, and it's just not very healthy for your overall diet. Like for your overall health, it's just not great. So, but technically you could do that and it could still work for you. But obviously I never recommend that, which is why I aim for more of habitual eating styles. So what this could mean is that throughout the day, you're eating your foods coming from like 80% good, solid, whole food sources, or rather healthier options. And then for the rest of the day, you're eating like 20% junk food, 20% treat foods. You could eat most of your calories that day from good, healthy foods. And then at the end of the day, you've got some calories left over. You can have some treats. You can have chips or chocolate or whatever. And that just should be incorporated, because I apply this with all of my clients. But when I say that you need to make sure the approach that you take to your fitness journey and the transformation that you want to have shouldn't just be for a short-term block, should be for a sustainable period of time, for a long period of time. And so if you're constantly going on restrictive diets that force you into a binge eating cycle where you're like restrict yourself, and then you go back out and you binge on foods and then you gain the weight back and then you gain some extra weight too, then how is that a long-term approach? That's not the approach that's going to actually help you to get and sustain results for the long term. So that's why with myself and also with my clients, I try to incorporate a sustainable approach to nutrition and eating that allows you to enjoy foods, to enjoy your life. You can still go out, you can still have your drinks on the weekend, you can have pizzas or throughout the week, whatever it might be, but then you also reel it back in and you have the balance between the two. That's the key thing. Having the balance. And then look, over time, you can look to improve that. You can improve eating habits, but I usually never recommend removing like junk foods entirely from your diet, because it's just not really sustainable. Because eventually all the temptations will usually come back in, and then you'll probably cave into it, and then you'll be in a worse position once you do cave into it. So instead, learn to incorporate it with your daily life, incorporate it with your journey, so then you can get results and you can still enjoy the process. Okay? So that's just the approach that I take to it. If that's not for you, that's fine. I'm just telling you what I have done, what works for me, what works for my clients, and what has got them better long-term results than trying to restrict them on some ridiculous diet. So a bonus step that I wanted to add in for you guys in this process that I took is also prioritizing recovery and rest. And what I mean by this is when it came to my journey, it's very, very important that you're prioritizing 7 to 9 hours of sleep. And one of the things that I've done is that I tried to make sure that I got a minimum of 7 hours of sleep. Now for me, I tend to operate best on around about 8 hours of sleep, but sometimes you just can't do that. But generally speaking, if I got anything less than 7, I was just down and out for the rest of the day, or my productivity dropped a lot and my energy levels dropped a lot. And sleep is one of the most important aspects for being able to actually achieve the goals, because it actually regulates a lot of different hormones and it regulates a lot of different functions in the body, especially when it comes to trying to maintain or build muscle, which I don't recommend trying to build muscle a lot during fat loss. Just try and focus on retaining the muscle that you've built already. But what it actually helps to do is it actually helps to keep that muscle on, and it helps you to recover faster during your sleep. That's where the rest and recovery actually happens, when you're sleeping. So it's very important that you're actually prioritizing rest and recovery and getting enough sleep each and every night to the best of your ability so that you can maximize your fat loss. So another thing as well when it comes to that is recovery times between sessions. So you might be thinking, all right, well, how long should I be resting? This is a common question. How long do I rest between workouts? So in this example where for me, I worked out 4 days per week where I had 2 upper body sessions and 2 lower body sessions, meaning that I often would be hitting the same muscle group twice per week. And with that, it's actually important that you are getting enough time in between those sessions so that your muscles can fully recover. Now, this is going to change depending on how hard, how intensely you're training. That's all going to play a role. However, there's a general guide of about 48 hours, but I always say if it's 48 hours or until the muscle is recovered enough that you can train it again, meaning there's no soreness or fatigue and things in the muscles that are still kind of going to hold you back. If you're training your muscles on again when they're still sore, that's a recipe for injury. So don't train your muscles again to the best of your ability if you can avoid it when they're still recovering from your previous training session, and leave about 48 hours or until you're ready to train again, until they're fully recovered and they're ready to go. So that's a really important step, is making sure that you are optimizing your rest and recovery. This is a crucial step during my fat loss phase, and it's going to be crucial for you as well. So anyway, guys, I hope you got value in this video and I hope you find it helpful. This is quite literally the step-by-step guide I went through to lose 10 kilograms of fat in 90 days. This is the exact process. If you are not sure where to get started, you can check any of those links below, a lot of the free resources that I've put there for you. If you also want further help, you want personalized coaching to implement these steps and really stay accountable, stay on track, and make sure you're actually hitting those goals, then you can also apply to work with me privately. I'll leave a link for that below if you want to do that. But either way, check out some of those resources to get you started. I'm keen to hear what your thoughts were on this process. If there's anything else that you have encountered during your phase of fat loss, if you've done this type of thing before as well, I'd be curious to hear what your experience has been and other little things that have helped you during that process. But I wanted to give you guys a step-by-step guide that you can use and just go out and start achieving results right now. So I'm really keen to hear your progress. It's going to be a little bit, but I'm sure you'll get some results from this. So I hope you guys found this useful, and I'll see you guys in the next video. So thanks for watching. Cheers.